You're listening to the Lazenby Experience podcast with your host, Joshua Lazenby. The Lazenby Experience podcast is a podcast to help individuals find their way to their success. Whether it's going to a four-year university, community college, trade school, or anything else, my goal is to be a resource to help you along the way. I'll be sharing my personal ups and downs, as well as tips as I continue my journey to receive my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. I will also have guests to share their stories, advice, and experiences. So come along for the ride as you begin your journey to your success. Welcome back to another episode of the Lazenby Experience podcast. And if this is your first time tuning in, thank you for tuning in. I think this will be a great episode for you guys to learn something that can help you be successful in whatever path you're planning on going. Because I think whatever you're going, you need to have some sort of resume. So this is episode number 6. This is part 3 of 3 of the episode titled Preparing for a Career Fair. So this one I will be going over what resumes are, what resumes are not, and then going over different sections that you can include in your resume. There are some sections that if you don't have any information or have experience within that section, you of course won't keep that section in, but these are different sections you will have within your resume. So moving forward, let's go on to talk about what are resumes and why they're important. So first thing, resumes keep you prepared for opportunities. So as long as when you have a resume, whether you need to update it or you never had one and now you're making one for the first time, having that resume keeps you available or keeps you prepared for an opportunity that might come that you might not have thought about beforehand. So if it's an opportunity at your current job, if it's an opportunity you heard about from a friend, from a family member, you can automatically be like, okay, here's my resume. Whether you have to submit it online or you have to give it to somebody in person, you will have that ready, because a resume is basically a short story of who you are and what you are good at. So having that prepared and not having to take a day or two to get something prepared for that person will definitely help you in the long run. Number 2, it helps you stay up to date on your skills and activities. So you want to make sure that you're always up to date on your skills and abilities. A lot of times, including myself, you might be asked, what are you good at, or what are some skills you have in a conversation of possible somebody who might employ you. And you just be thinking like, what do I really know? What do I really bring to the table for an employer? But having that resume and actually going over that resume, you can have that at the top of your head and know things about yourself that you can help you look better and help you stand out when looking for a job or talking to somebody who might be able to offer you a job. And then the last one is potential to obtain a raise from your current employer. So if you're working at a job and within that job you might have had 2 or 3 different roles, or outside of that job you may have been involved in 2 or 3 different other organizations or clubs, you can include in your resume, and then you can let your current employer know, okay, I have these skill sets, and I think I add this much to the company, so I deserve this amount of raise. So you can definitely use that to your advantage at your current employer, not just at a potential employer at a career fair. So those are the 3 things I think a resume are important for, and definitely to have on hand, whether it's a digital copy or a copy in your book bag or your bag or at your desk or something like that. And as far as updating a resume, you can keep updated as much as you want. So if you when you get a new job, and I would say maybe a month or 2 after you got that job and you actually done something, you can update your resume with that current position. If you get a new leadership role within the organization you're a part of, you can add that to it as soon as you get it, or maybe a month or so, just so you can not just have the position, but also have something to back it up. Because if you get the position today and you put in your resume and somebody look at your resume like, oh, what did you do with this? Oh, I just got it today. So you want to make sure you actually have something to kind of back up that you actually did something within that position. So honestly, I would probably wait at least a month or two before you put on your resume, and then you will have something to actually write underneath it, which I'll be talking about later, about what kind of information you add to different positions or leadership roles. But moving forward, there is one thing a resume is not. At least to me, there's one thing. It is not your life story or a complete job history. Oh, sorry. I feel like I got something in my mouth. But anyway, a resume is not something that you will have every single job that you ever had, or every single position that you ever had, or every single volunteer opportunity that you did. These are the best things that you have done that you feel is related to the position that you are applying to. So you might have one or two different resumes because you have different skill sets that fit a certain role better than another role. So some people do have multiple resumes. I have like 2 resumes. One is geared towards engineering, and then I have a general one for just a job, like at a hotel, like I work right now. I have a resume, and it's different from the one that I have when I'm applying for my engineering jobs, because they have different skill sets that they're looking for. And on that note, I will have a copy of my resume. I'm going to try to have it on my Facebook page if I can put it on there somehow, just so you can see actual resume of somebody who has been successful at obtaining some kind of job that they actually really wanted. There are, of course, a lot of different resumes out there that you can look for. A lot of them are just examples of resumes. They're not actually somebody's resume. Like I see a lot of ones that say like John Doe or Joe Smith or something like that. And then they just have a bunch of generic jobs that you can have, that they have on the resume. But with mine, is actually a successful looking resume. It actually helped me get the current job that I have, the current co-op that I have at the company that I work for now. It didn't help me get a whole bunch of other things as well. So I will have a copy of that most likely on my Facebook page. But if some reason I can't put it on my Facebook page, and if you want to see a copy of it, you can always email me at lazenby experience. That's LAZENBY experience@gmail.com, and I will gladly send you a copy over just so you can have it for a reference when you're doing your resume or updating your resume. So on to the meat of this episode, which is going over the different sections that you could have, or that you should have within your resume. I already said this. I will have my resume as an example so you can see. And within my resume, I don't have all of these parts. I don't have all these sections because I don't have experience in all of these sections that I'm going to be talking about. But I know about it because I know people who have it in their resume. I have, of course, did some research about what you should include within those sections. So it's not just random stuff. It's actually information that is actually useful. So moving forward, the first thing you should have on your resume, which is kind of, everyone should know this, is a heading. So within your heading, of course, you want to have your name, and your name should probably be the biggest part of that's on your resume. It should be center, and it should be at the top, because you want them to be able to see your name as soon as you hand them your resume, so they can. That's kind of the most important part. What is one of the most important parts of your resume? So make sure it is big and in the center. And then you also want to have ways for them to contact you. So I put on my resume my phone number, my email, my personal email, and then I put on the city and state that I live in. I don't put my full address on there because if they do decide to give me the opportunity for that position, they're going to ask for that information anyway. So I just put the city and state that I am currently living in. One thing I do want to say about the email is make sure it's very professional. It should not be your first email that you probably ever had, because it probably says something very inappropriate, or it doesn't have a very professional looking name to it. So my personal email is my last name, my first name at gmail.com. So you can do something like that. You can have your first name, your last name, first name, and a couple numbers. But just keep it very simple, keep it very professional. And of course, you can use Gmail, you can use Yahoo, whatever email service you want to use, you can do that. I don't think that really doesn't matter, but making that name look professional, that's the biggest thing. And then underneath that, this section is optional. I do have it on mine, is an objective statement. So an objective statement is a short targeted statement that outlines your career direction. And then this statement should be tailored to fit the position you're applying for. So I have, mine is very generic, so I kind of use it. I think I use it for both of my resumes that I have. But it's very generic. It's something like, I want to, I should have wrote this down so I can give you an example. But it's in the lines of me being a very good employer who can add skills, that have skills that can add to the growth of that company. And this also talks about how I want to be able to grow within that company as well. So like I say, I will have a copy of my resume so you can see my objective statement. And then you can also look online and see other examples of objective statements to help you get yours to where you want it to be. So it's more about you and not just a generic statement. After the objective statement, and then also I should say, this should be no more than a sentence or two. I think I have mine in one sentence, so I wouldn't go over more than 2 sentences, because it's not really the most important part, and you don't want it to take up too much space on that page on your resume, because your resume should be only 1 page. So you might have a lot of information that you want to include on your resume, and you don't want something that small to take up so much space. All right, next is your education. So whether you in high school or in college or at a trade school, this is where you put that information in. So of course you have the name of the school or schools, because I have my community college that I attended and graduated from, and then I have my current school that I'm attending and plan on graduating from. I don't know if I said this, but this is actually the 3rd school that I went to, but I do not include that first school that I went to, because 1, I didn't graduate from it, and 2, it wouldn't make sense to have something on there, and I don't plan to graduate from it. If I did graduate, if I already graduated from a school and then I'm at a different school, that has nothing to do with that first school. So I don't include my first school because it's just too much space, and then it's nothing. Of course, I have experiences from that school, but I have nothing that will add value to my resume with just putting the name of the school on there, if that makes sense. So you put the name of the school or schools, like I said. You put the state and the city, or city and state. Of course, you put the city and then the state abbreviation. The degree or certificate that you're working towards or that you earned from that school. Your graduation date or expected graduation date. So if you did graduate from that school already, you have graduated, and then put the month and the year that you graduated from. And then if you did not graduate yet, you put expected graduation date, and then you put the month and the year. And then if your GPA is above a 3.0, or if it's a 3.0 or higher, then you definitely want to put your GPA on there. And the reason I say that is because you don't want people to judge who you are or judge your skill set before they get a chance to talk to you, because a lot of employers do look at your GPA if you're looking for an internship or a full-time job. And if your GPA is below a 3.0, a lot of companies might not even give you a chance to explain why your GPA is lower than 3.0, or even explain that you are skilled in whatever opportunity that you're applying for. So if your GPA is lower, don't put it on there, but also don't panic. Just be able to communicate either why you had that a lower GPA, or explain that even though your GPA is lower than a 3.0, you do have the skill set to be successful within that position. Let's see what else I have. If you're going to a college or trade school. Okay, so I think in my first part of this series, when I talked about resumes, I said one of the parts that I talked about when I was talking about resumes was if you when you graduate high school, that you should take your high school education off of your resume. I think I said within the first year. I do want to make a small adjustment to what I said. If you're going to a college or a trade school, that is when I would take off the high school information, high school education section. I would take that part off within the first semester or within the first year, because now you're at that new school. If you're at a trade school, if you're at a community college, if you're at a four-year university, a lot of people they can put two and two together and say that you graduated high school. So now you're moving forward with your new education. So you don't have to have it on there after you have some experience within college or a trade school. But if you do not plan on going to college, or you're not in college or a trade school, I would say I would recommend no more than 2 or 3 years. This is not based off experience, because I have been in college. I am in college, so I don't know exactly what works. But for me, I think 2 or 3 years. Within that 2 or 3 years, you should have enough on your resume to cover the education portion, if high school is the highest within that time. So of course you can keep it on there as long as you want, but I think within that 2 or 3 years you should have some kind of job experience, leadership experience, or within the organization or something like that, that can be better put on your resume than just graduating high school. But again, that is my opinion. You can definitely keep it on there as long as you think you need it on there. And then I'm kind of going in order of like top to bottom. So the first thing you'll have is your top heading, so your name. Second part, you'll have an objective statement if you plan on putting it there. And then the third thing you have on is your education. So moving right along, after education, you should have coursework. And of course, this only applies to if you're going to college or if you're going to a trade school. I would not include courses from your high school, because a lot of people have to take the same courses when you're in high school. When you're in college or a trade school, everyone is not taking the same courses, at least not at the same time, especially not within different majors. So you want to make sure that you have the coursework that is relevant to the position that you're applying to. So if you're applying, I'm an engineer, I would definitely include any of my top level engineering courses that I'm taking within the positions I'm applying for engineering. I wouldn't include any kind of lower level classes or prerequisite classes. So I wouldn't include general education. So if I'm taking a psychology class, or if I'm taking a music class, I wouldn't include that. Or even if I'm taking a math class or a physics class, I wouldn't include that, only because those are classes that almost everyone has to take, and they expect you to have that within a certain amount of time that you've been at that institution. But they do want to see what classes you take when you're at your higher level classes that are more specific to your major, because they want to see what kind of knowledge you have and how that can apply to the position that you are applying for. So do not include general education courses. Also, if you are, so with those classes that you are taking, the upper level classes, you don't even have to include all of those, because if you're applying for, let's say, software engineering course, but you also took a circuits class, which is not software. You don't have to include, well, you can, but if you have a software class that you took, you will include that before you include a hardware class that you have taken. So it should, again, this is why you might have multiple resumes, because you might be applying to a software job and a hardware job as far as electrical engineering goes. And if you're applying for a software job, certain classes are more relevant than if you're going for a hardware job. So definitely make sure, though, again, you can keep both of them on your resume, but you want to make sure that you have enough room to fit the ones that are more relevant. Like more relevant until you have, maybe if you want to include 4 classes and 3 of them are more relevant to software and one of them is just engineering course that you took, you can definitely do that. But make sure you have those relevant classes up front. This one you can just, international, I should say, this one you should only include the title of the course. You don't have to include a description of what you learned in the course or anything, because if they want to know what you learned in that course, they would definitely let you know, or definitely ask you what kind of information you got from that course, because you don't want to take up a lot of space. Again, this resume is only supposed to be 1 page. So if you have 4 different courses you have on your resume and you talk about each one of them, you won't have a lot of room to work with the other sections on the resume. So definitely just the title, and then on my resume I have it in 2 kind of columns so I can fit a little bit more on there instead of just having one straight line and trying to fit them all on one line. On to the next section is experience. So when I talked about this not being a job history, all your jobs that you have ever had, this is kind of where I'm going, because within experience, this is only for the most relevant course or relevant jobs that you have that fits the position that you are going for. Now, of course, every position that you have, or any of the positions that you have, none of them might not fit the exact role that you are applying for, but you want to pick the ones that have skills that can best have you stand apart from anyone else when applying for that position. So I have one internship and I was a system engineer, and now this current internship that I'm working with, I'm more of an electrical engineer. But I would definitely include my system engineering experience because it is within the engineering field. I worked at McDonald's when I was in high school. I definitely wouldn't include that on there because 1 is very old and 2 is like really not related to engineering. So I would definitely, if it's not completely the same kind of job that you're applying for, it can still work with certain skill sets that you have or that you use within that job. So the way you will put this information on the resume is you'll, of course, put the name of the company, the position that you were, or the last position. Well, I only want to say the last position, the position that you're going to be having more details about. Put that position on there. So within the job, maybe you get promoted 2 or 3 times, but that second promotion is where you learned a lot of stuff from. So you'll put that title in there, and then I will talk about this. You'll put 3 or 5 bullet points about what you did within that role. So you put, like I said, name of the company, the position, and then dates you were employed. So not necessarily the dates you were in that role, but the dates that you were at that certain job. So if you was there from January 2018 to January 2020, you put January 2000, and you'll put it that way. If it is a current employer, so you still work there, you'll put the date that you started, and instead of putting a date that you ended, you would just put present. And a lot of employers, if not all employers, know that means that you still work there. And then, like I was kind of leading to before, you will have 3 to 5 bullet points to show what you did or accomplished. Now, within those bullet points, I want to talk a little bit about what you want to include, because you don't need to include everything. Like I said, I work at a front desk at a hotel, and everything that I did at the hotel, I don't need to include. I don't need to include that I took out the garbage, or I cleaned the bathroom, or something like that. You want to put the most important things that you did within that job. So you want to include numbers as much as you can. So if you successfully sold $10,000 worth of whatever, you definitely want to put that number in there, because recruiters are looking for that as specific as possible. Like, if I sold that much money, they want to see, oh, okay, he knows how to be he knows how to be a salesman because he sold $10,000 worth of whatever I sold. Of course, if everything doesn't have numbers, so you don't have to include it if it doesn't have anything to do with numbers. And then you want to start each bullet point with an action word. You want to make sure that it's something that you did. So you want to say created, or built, or something along those lines, to make it to show that you actually did something, and it's not just a description of the job. They want to see action. They want to see verbs that you actually accomplished throughout your time at that position or within that job. There are, of course, sometimes you might get might seem hard to figure out some verbs to figure, or some action words to use. Just Google action words or verbs to use within a resume, and a whole bunch of words will come up, and then you can kind of pick and choose which one makes sense. One thing I do want to say is, if you are currently at that job, you want to make it present tense. And then if it's a job that you had and you're now no longer working there, make it past tense. So, I mean, a lot of employers probably won't look that deep into it, but again, it makes you stand out and makes it look very professional. And then look up, I said look up verbs and action words if you need help. Of course, when I put on my resume on my Facebook page, or if you ask for it through email, I have action words for all of my bullet points, so you can definitely use those as well. But it's a lot of documents, or a lot of information on the internet that can help you figure out what words to use. So definitely look that up, and then you'll have so many, you have a harder time choosing the words and actually coming up with the word. So definitely use your resources when you need help. So next, after experience, you want to put leadership. Put leadership roles that you have held. Now, I think leadership roles within an organization. So if you go to church and you were a youth pastor, if you go to school and you was the president of an organization, those type of leadership roles. So I wouldn't put, if it's a leadership role within a job, you should have that in experience. But if it's a leadership role within an organization that you're a part of, this is where that will go. And then with this section, you put the name of the organization, the position or positions that you held. So you can definitely put multiple positions within an organization if you held them. And then the dates that you actually held those positions. Not the date that you were part of that organization, but the dates that you were within that role. And then this part is optional. You can include 1 or 2 bullet points to talk about what you did within that leadership role. I think for one of my resumes, I do have bullet points, and then I think the other one I do not, just because of space. So if you are looking to save some space, you can definitely just have the title and then keep it as that, or have the name, the title, and then the dates that you held it, and keep it as that. But if you're trying to make it look a little bit more fuller and show a little bit more that you have done, you can definitely put, I would say 1 or 2. I wouldn't put too many, but I would definitely put like 1 or 2, maybe even 3 bullet points. And then it's the same thing that you do for experience when putting those bullet points. So make sure it's action words, and if you can put numbers in there to kind of quantify something that you did, I would definitely put that in there. So after leadership, I will put any projects or research that you have done. So this is mostly within, if you go to a school or a university or a community college, this section it will be in your resume if you were doing research or project. I would say if you did research or project on your own, I would include that too. So if you didn't go to a four-year university, but you were interested in robotics, so you built your own robot and you taught yourself how to code and you taught yourself how to actually build the robot, definitely put that in there. And then put the name of the project, so you can just put like robotic. I wouldn't name it too long, so I would say probably robotic, something like that. And then in that section, you will put the name of the project. So I say robotics, and then put the dates that you worked on it. So if you worked on it for 6 months, put that amount of time. So put the month and the year that you started, and then the month and the year that you ended, and then put a couple bullet points on what you accomplished. So, like I said, let's say you built a robot and you did some coding, so you can put learned how to code within this language, so you want to make it specific as possible. So you want to put the actual language that you learned. If you learned how to build the robot, so you want to put built a mechanical robot. If you want to put the size of the robot, like I said, if you have numbers, you want to definitely include that in there. So you can say build a 2x4 robotic robot or something like that. So of course I can't really think off the top of my head, but get the gist of it like that. So that's a project, and then research goes for the same way. So if you've done research within a university, or again if you did research on your own somehow, you can definitely include that. And if you did do research on your own, I think it's kind of hard to kind of say what I don't know. Because when I think of research, I'm thinking of you're in the lab, you have someone who showing you what to do and that sort of thing. But if you do have a way to show that you did research on your own, definitely include that within your resume as well. I think a lot of things that you do on your own, especially within leadership or within a project or research, I think those kind of stand out because it shows that you're self-disciplined. It shows that you're very motivated. It shows that you are a leader and you know how to take responsibilities for what you're trying to do. So I definitely think you should definitely have those on there. And sometimes you have to really think, and maybe you have to ask a friend or ask an advisor on what they think about that experience, or what they think will be a good experience, like project or research that you've done, because not every project that you did or research that you have conducted will fit within a resume. So definitely, again, use your resources to make sure you're picking the right projects or research that sounds good for your resume. And then the last thing you should have on your resume is activities that you're involved in / awards. And I put those two together. I put project and research together too because they're kind of similar. And then I put activities and awards or rewards, I say it, on your resume together because they are, I wouldn't say that they're probably the least important thing on there, but definitely have them on there. Definitely if you need more things to put in your resume, and just to show that you have achieved other things as well. So for the activities that you are involved in or was involved in, you put the name of the activity and then put the dates that you're involved. So these can include the different activities that you're also a leader in. So like I said, I am a part of an organization called NSBE. I was a member as well as a leader within that organization. So I can have NSBE in my leadership section as well in my activities / reward section. So you can definitely keep them in both sections. And then of course put your awards that you've won. So if you were top 10 in your school, if you was valedictorian, if you won a scholarship, definitely put that on there. And then you put the name of the award. You can put, and then you don't have to put if it was a scholarship or anything, you don't have to put the amount that you won, and then just put the date that you won it. For the activities, I don't know if I said it, but for the activities, put the name of the organization or the activity, and then also put the name, and then you can put like member, and then you can put the dates that you're involved, you were or are involved. Again, if you're still involved in something, instead of having an end date, you just put the word present on there, and they will know what that means. A section I did forget to put on there, well, you can have it in activities, is if you volunteer for anything. So whether it's a one-time thing or something you do every week or every month or something like that, definitely have it on there. I guess you can put it under activities, but if you want to have a separate section, you can put volunteer and have the name of the organization that you volunteer for, if you have a role within that organization, and then put the dates that you were involved. If it was a one-time thing, just put that date. You don't have to put January 2020 to January 2020. Just put January 2020. So those are all the sections I think you should include on your resume. Of course, if you do not have experience in one thing or another, you shouldn't have on your resume at all. So if I never did a project, or if I never won an award, I wouldn't have those sections on there and then have it blank. I would just scratch those sections off completely. The order that I went in, I think I said this already, but the order that I went in, I think is the order that you should have your resume in, because you want to make the most important stuff at the top, and then as you go down, it's kind of least important. Because when a recruiter is looking at your resume, they're really just scanning it. They're not reading every single bullet point. They're not dissecting everything. They're looking for certain keywords that kind of pop out for the position that they are recruiting for. So if they're starting from the top, you want to make sure that the best things are up there, so they can they can quickly see what they're looking for, and then they can either have a conversation with you about that, they can schedule an interview with you about that, or something of that nature. So a few quick things I also want to include on this episode about your resume. Number one, make sure everything is organized. So make sure everything looks the same. So if you have the title of each section, if the whole word is all in all caps, which is what I have, make sure every title have every word in all caps. If only the first word is capitalized, or only the first letter in each word is capitalized, only that, the same way for everyone. If you have a line to separate each section, make sure it's a line to separate every section and not just one section. The font, if everything that you have in bullet points are in 12 font, make sure everything is in 12 font and bullet points. I think I have like the title one size, I have like the name of the company, the position and date one size, and I have the bullet points one size, only because I'm trying to fit so much within my one-page resume. It takes up too much space, so I try to make it look still good, but then make it also all fit. And then you don't want to make it too small either. I say 10 font would probably be the smallest you want to go, and then keep it a very professional type of font as well. So I use Times New Roman. I think there's a few other ones that are kind of very professional that you can use as well, but I think Times New Roman is probably one of the most popular ones or common ones to use. Next is, I said this a couple times already, but make sure the resume is one page only. Again, employers are not looking at your resume and reading it like a book. They are scanning it, and if you give them 2 pages, they are not going to scan both pages. I'm telling you that, because they probably have a whole line of people trying to talk to them, and they have to get through a lot of people within a short amount of time, so that they don't have a lot of time to really read your resume and dissect it and do all of that with it. So definitely keep it to 1 page. And then again, I think I talked about this as well. Everything on your resume should be very relevant to that position. So again, if you have to have multiple resumes because you're applying to multiple different positions in different fields, you should do that because it makes you stand out. You don't want to have a resume that's geared towards engineering, but you also like business. You also want to do something within business and have that same resume, because a lot of skills within business, of course, it might go with the engineering, but there are some things that you might have done that fits more into engineering than it does in business, and vice versa. So definitely make sure the resume is as relevant as possible to the position that you are applying for. And then this is very important. You might think your resume look perfect. You might think everything is great, and anyone who looks at your resume will want to hire you. You definitely want to have somebody look over your resume, whether it's a friend, or whether it's a family member. I really advise to have an advisor or counselor if you go to a school to look over it, because they look over resumes. I won't say for a living, but they look over resumes a lot. And then if you do go to a four-year university or community college, they should have a part of their school or department in their school that goes over career information. So they look over resumes, they look over cover letters, they help you with interviews and stuff like that. So there should be a department within your school that specifically helps you with resumes. So definitely have them look over your resume. And even though you think it looks perfect, you might have misspelled the word, or you might have put a date in the wrong spot. It might not look as professional as you think it should, as you think it does look. So having third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh person look at it would definitely increase your chances of standing out when going to a recruiter. And then lastly, you always make sure you keep it updated. So if you have a new job, if you have a new leadership position, if you won a new award, any of those kind of things, like I said, I will probably wait a month or two when you have some kind of experience underneath your belt when it comes to leadership roles or a job that you have. I will wait a little while just to make sure, one, that you still work there, and then two, you actually have something to put within your resume to show that you actually have skills that are from that position. Of course, if you won an award, you can put it on as soon as you won it, because there's nothing. Okay, I'm back. I had a phone call that came in through my phone, which is what I'm recording on. So I think the last thing I was talking about is updating your resume and how soon you should do it. So definitely, I think I said already, keep it updated as much as possible. I said with different positions, make sure you wait, I would say, a month or two to have some skill sets behind that job, and then like awards or volunteering, you can put those on there as soon as you start those. So I think that is all that I have today for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it and learned something from it. Like I said, I will have a copy of my resume, my current resume, that helped me get the position I'm in now, and actually get the position that I just had a phone call with, get that position as well. So if for some reason I cannot put it on my Facebook page, you can definitely email me at lazenby.experience. That's LAZENBY experience@gmail.com. And then if you want to listen to this episode, listen to past episodes and future episodes, you can watch almost anywhere you listen to a podcast. So that's including Facebook, that's YouTube, that's Apple Podcasts, I think it's a Google Podcast, SoundCloud, what else? Stitcher. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can listen. So definitely tune in. If you don't know how to get to those different platforms, you can go to my Facebook page and have a link on there to get to those different platforms. If you have any other questions, or if you want me to look over your resume and give you my 2 cents, you can definitely send it over as well. So until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success. Thanks for listening to the Lazenby Experience podcast with me, Joshua Lazenby. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something to help you along your journey to your success. The Lazenby Experience podcast will continue to be available anywhere you listen to podcasts, including Facebook, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. If you really enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating, and write a comment. For any questions, you can reach me at lazenbyexperience@gmail.com. Until next time, continue your journey until you reach your success.